Imagination is not merely a place for fantasy or idle dreams. It is the very foundation of our experience, the silent architect of our lives. What we imagine with feeling and conviction becomes the blueprint of our reality. Long before something materializes in the external world, it takes shape in the unseen realm of imagination. Everything that surrounds us, buildings, careers, relationships, even identities, once existed only in the mind of someone who dared to believe it was real before it was visible. When we begin to see imagination not as fiction but as creative law, we stop depending on appearances to define what is possible. The world responds not to what we wish for weakly, but to what we accept inwardly as true. If we imagine hardship constantly, life reflects that. If we imagine success, peace, or joy with conviction, the world bends to mirror those inner states. The outer world is not fixed. It is molded by the intensity and clarity of the inner vision we hold. This means we are never truly victims of circumstance. The power to change lies not in effort alone, but in the ability to imagine differently. When you understand that imagination forms the only true reality, you begin to care less about temporary facts. You stop arguing with what is and begin assuming what could be, living as if it already is. That state of mind shifts everything. It removes fear and installs purpose. Because the moment something is imagined vividly and accepted as fact within, life begins to organize itself around that assumption. That is the unseen mechanism behind change, behind healing, behind transformation. Most people live reactively, interpreting life as it comes. But when you realize that imagination precedes experience, you move from reaction to creation. You stop needing permission to dream or evidence to believe. Your inner world becomes your secret workshop, where you sculpt reality with feeling and faith. What you see around you is only the residue of past imaginal activity. If you want something new, you don't need to fight the old. You only need to imagine differently. That's where real power lies. To live in the end is to occupy the state of your desire fulfilled before any evidence of it appears. It is the discipline of assuming the feeling of the wish already realized, of mentally and emotionally residing in the outcome you seek as if it were already a fact. This is not about positive thinking or blind hope. It is a deliberate shift in consciousness where you no longer look forward to something happening, but instead live from the certainty that it already has. When you live in the end, you bypass doubt. You stop asking when or how, and begin to feel and act in harmony with the version of you that already has what you want. It changes your choices, your reactions, even the energy you radiate. You don't wait for permission from the world to feel secure, loved, successful, or free. You generate those feelings from within, ahead of physical confirmation. This inner conviction is not passive. It moves unseen forces, reorganizes people, circumstances, and events to bring your inner state into alignment with your external world. Most people live from a place of lack. They focus on what is missing and wait for the world to change before they do. But when you live in the end, you reverse that dynamic. You change first, internally, by assuming the end has already come to pass, and that assumption begins to mold your reality. You start to carry yourself differently, speak differently, respond differently, because you are not hoping. It is done in your mind and heart. Living in the end is not pretending or lying to yourself. It is selecting a state of being and embodying it now, regardless of current facts. You no longer negotiate with appearances or allow external setbacks to unsettle you. You remain faithful to the end you have accepted as real. That end becomes the new point of attraction, and life eventually conforms to it. This is the key to all transformation, not in forcing the world to change, but in changing your own inner state and remaining loyal to it until the world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. To feel it real is to bypass logic and engage the emotional power of belief. It is not enough to simply think about what you want or repeat affirmations like a machine. What truly changes your life is the emotional experience of already having what you desire, felt vividly and sincerely in the present moment. Feeling is the bridge between imagination and reality. It is the signal you send out that life responds to. When you feel something as real, your subconscious mind accepts it as truth, regardless of outer facts. This feeling is not wishful or passive. It is active participation in the unseen. You inhabit the state of fulfillment, even if everything around you looks unchanged. This is not pretending or acting, it is embodiment. You feel the joy, the relief, the confidence, the peace that your desired outcome would bring, and you do it now as if the event has already occurred. That internal alignment becomes magnetic. It begins to attract situations, people, and opportunities that correspond to the emotional frequency you're living in. Most people think they need to see change first, and then they'll feel better. But this reverses the true creative process. The outer world reflects inner states. To wait is to delay. When you feel it real, you short. Circuit time and bring the future into the present emotionally. And once you live emotionally in the reality of your wish fulfilled, reality has no choice but to follow. This is the mechanism behind all lasting transformation, not effort alone, but the ability to feel with conviction that what you seek is already yours. You may not know how it will come, and that's not your concern. The how belongs to a higher intelligence. Your job is to cultivate the feeling of already being the person you want to be, or having the life you want to live. That feeling becomes the seed, and just like nature, the harvest is certain when the seed is nurtured and left undisturbed. Your attention is not passive. It is a force that shapes and directs the unfolding of your life. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows, and that energy becomes form, experience, reality. Most people believe they are merely observing life, reacting to what happens, but in truth, they are constantly creating through the focus of their attention. What you consistently observe, dwell upon, and emotionally engage with becomes the content of your future. Attention is the channel through which imagination expresses itself. When you give something your attention, you feed it with awareness. If you continually focus on fear, lack, or limitation, those experiences will expand in your world, not because life is unfair, but because you are unconsciously selecting those outcomes by giving them life through sustained focus. In contrast, when you deliberately place your attention on what is noble, beautiful, empowering, or already accomplished in your inner world, you begin to give birth to those realities. You always have the power to choose where your attention goes. Even if circumstances are difficult, you can withdraw your focus from them and redirect it toward the life you wish to create. This is not denial, it is mastery. You acknowledge what is, but you no longer identify with it. You become more interested in what can be than what has been. That shift alone is transformative. It takes you out of reaction and places you back in conscious creation. The world will always compete for your attention, through distractions, drama, doubt, or fear. But once you understand that attention is the currency of creation, you become selective, you guard your inner focus, you realize that the state you dwell in mentally is more important than anything outside of you. Attention fused with feeling is creative law. When you concentrate your attention on a desired state and refuse to be moved by appearances, that state becomes alive, and life bends to reflect it back to you. You are not at the mercy of conditions. You are shaping them, moment by moment, by what you give your attention to. Circumstances do not matter because they are not the cause of your experience. They are the effect of past assumptions, past feelings, and past focus. What surrounds you now is not final. It is simply the outpicturing of a previous state of mind that has hardened into fact. When you realize this, you stop being intimidated or discouraged by what is currently happening in your life. You begin to see circumstances not as obstacles, but as temporary reflections that can be changed by altering your inner state. People often give their power away to conditions. They believe that until the job comes, the relationship improves, the money appears, or the health issue resolves, they cannot feel better or move forward, but this keeps them stuck. It's a cycle where the outer world dictates the inner world, and so the same story repeats itself. The truth is, change begins within. When you shift your inner perception and hold to a new assumption, the world has no choice but to reflect it. Circumstances may appear real, solid, and immovable, but they are not permanent. They are fluid, shaped by belief and sustained by focus. When you stop reacting to what is and instead respond from the place of what you want to be, you reclaim your creative authority. This does not mean ignoring reality, but rather understanding that reality is not fixed. It is malleable, and it is always responding to your dominant inner state. Even if nothing around you supports your dream right now, you can still enter the feeling of it fulfilled. And when you persist in that state, regardless of appearances, the circumstances must shift to match. It's not a matter of hoping they will change. It's a law that they must. Outer facts are slow echoes of inner convictions. They are never the source of power. You are. And when you stop treating them as permanent or all powerful, you free yourself to live from possibility instead of limitation. Stop seeking validation, because the moment you depend on others to approve your dreams, your choices, or your worth, you hand over your power. The need for validation is rooted in doubt. It reveals a lack of trust in your own inner knowing. When you look to others to confirm that what you want is acceptable, realistic, or possible, you delay your own transformation. You become trapped in a loop of waiting for permission, for applause, for signs of agreement. But true change, true creation, never begins with consensus. It begins with conviction. Validation from others is fleeting. It shifts with opinions, moods, and perspectives that have nothing to do with your inner vision. Relying on it means you are constantly adjusting who you are to fit what someone else believes is acceptable. This fragments your energy. It keeps you from staying true to the state you wish to embody. But when you stop seeking it, when you begin to validate yourself from within, based not on current facts, but on inner alignment, you become free, free to imagine without limits, free to express without compromise. You don't need anyone to see what you see. Your vision is for you. Your imagination is your private workshop. The world catches up only after you've remained loyal to it long enough for it to take form. People often won't understand at first. They may doubt, question, or even resist what you're becoming. That's not a sign to stop, it's a sign to go deeper within. When you no longer care if others approve, you begin to live from authenticity. You move in the direction of what calls you, not what pleases the crowd. The deepest confidence comes from silence, the quiet certainty that your inner world is more real than anything outside of you. You no longer need applause because you've already felt the success within. You no longer need to be understood because you understand yourself, and that self-understanding becomes your foundation, your guide, your strength. When you stop seeking validation, you stop dimming your light to make others comfortable, and you start living as the fullest version of yourself, unedited and unapologetic. Power, which means nothing in your life, changes unless you change. No force outside of you is deciding your fate. No circumstance, person, or event has creative control over your experience unless you give it permission through belief or focus. Everything begins with you, your assumptions, your reactions, your inner conversations. Life does not respond to what you want in theory. It responds to what you accept as true and persist in emotionally. You are not a passive observer in this world. You are the one shaping it, moment by moment, through your consciousness. This understanding removes the need to wait for signs, for perfect timing, or for external conditions to shift before you take ownership of your life. You stop looking outward for solutions and begin directing your awareness inward, where all change begins. If something is not showing up the way you want it to, it's not because you are unlucky or blocked. It's because, on some level, you are not fully occupying the state of already having it. The shift is not in the world, but in how you see yourself in relation to it. You are not a beggar hoping for scraps of good fortune. You are the one determining what happens through the state you assume and sustain. The operant power does not wait for validation, proof, or favorable conditions. It decides, imagines, and feels the end result as done, and trusts that life will align accordingly. This is not arrogance, it is clarity. It is the realization that your inner world is the cause, not the effect. You stop blaming others, stop trying to control the external, and instead focus all your energy on embodying the state that matches your desire. The world bends to that inner certainty. No technique, affirmation, or visualization works unless you do. The you, that accepts responsibility as the creator. You cannot bypass this truth. You cannot delegate it. Once you understand that you are the operant power, everything becomes possible, because you are no longer at the mercy of anything outside yourself. The power is always active within you. The question is, are you using it consciously or by default? Either way, your life is always reflecting your deepest convictions. Persist in your assumption, because the world does not change the moment you imagine something. It changes when you remain loyal to that imagination, regardless of what appears in front of you. Assumption is the seed, but persistence is the water. It's easy to believe for a moment, to feel inspired for a day, or to visualize something beautiful once or twice. But the true creative power lies in the ability to stay mentally and emotionally aligned with the desired state, even when there is no external evidence yet. That consistency builds momentum. That inner loyalty becomes the force that eventually rewrites the outer script. When you persist, you are not pushing or forcing. You are remaining. You hold to the end you've chosen. You continue to return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not as a desperate act of needing it to happen, but as a calm conviction that it already has. The world may throw contradictions at you. Delays may arise. Opposite results may appear at first. But none of that matters if you truly understand that what you assume with feeling and continue to dwell in must be made real. People often give up too quickly. They plant the seed of desire and then dig it up with doubt, fear, and contradiction. But the law is clear. What you accept and persist in, you will experience. It is not about force of will. It is about inner faithfulness. You remain unmoved in the face of appearances, not because you're denying reality, but because you're creating a new one. The old must dissolve to make room for the new, and sometimes that process looks like resistance or stagnation. But even in that space, your assumption is working if you remain consistent. Your assumption is your chosen state of being. You don't visit it. You live in it. You act from it, think from it, respond from it. That inner posture shapes your behavior, your outlook, and eventually your circumstances. There is nothing more powerful than a mind that refuses to shift out of its vision. Persistence is what turns possibility into fact. It's not a one-time effort, it's a way of being. When you persist in your assumption, no matter how long it takes, you declare to the universe that you know who you are and what is yours, and that certainty is always honored. Let go of control, not creation, because the need to control every detail often stems from fear, not faith. True creation is born from clarity of intention and the willingness to trust the unseen forces at work. You do not need to manipulate circumstances or force outcomes to manifest what you desire. In fact, that kind of effort often creates resistance, anxiety, and delays. Control implies that you don't believe your desire will unfold unless you manage every part of the process. But creation works differently. It flows from inner alignment, not outer micromanagement. When you create with intention, you define the end. You imagine the result clearly and feel it as already done. That is your role, to choose, to assume, to feel. Once that is done, the mechanics of how it comes to pass do not belong to you. They are handled by the same intelligence that moves the planets, grows the trees, and beats your heart without your conscious effort. Trying to control the timing, the people involved, the exact sequence of events, only brings tension and pulls you out of the state of the wish fulfilled. It places your focus back on lack, uncertainty, and what hasn't happened yet. Letting go of control is not about giving up. It is about stepping into trust. It is recognizing that the moment you fully imagine something and feel it real, a chain of unseen activity is set in motion. Your task is to stay faithful to the vision, to continue embodying the state of fulfillment, and to allow life to orchestrate the details. You are the creator of direction, not logistics. You select the destination, but you do not have to design the entire map. This surrender is powerful. It frees your energy. It allows the answers, opportunities, and people to come to you without force. You begin to notice synchronicities, sudden shifts, and quiet unfoldings that seem to arrive effortlessly. But they are not accidental. They are the result of releasing control while maintaining unwavering creation. You create with the mind, the heart, the feeling, and you allow the external world to catch up without trying to bend it into shape. This is not passivity, it is mastery. It is knowing your role in the process and playing it with confidence, patience, and inner peace. In the end, to stop caring about external approval, fear, and circumstance is to reclaim your power and step fully into the life you were meant to live. When you embrace your imagination as the true creative force, live from the fulfilled state, feel it deeply, and direct your attention wisely, you align with a reality that supports your highest vision. Letting go of control without letting go of creation opens the door to effortless manifestation, and persisting in your assumption brings lasting transformation. Remember, the life you desire is not out there waiting to happen. It is within you, ready to be lived. So stop caring about the limitations others place on you or the temporary setbacks you face. Start living as the person who already has everything you want, and watch how the world responds in kind.